You are watching and listening to the Two Chumps Football Podcast. Emil Calamino, Chad Wilson, and we have a treat for you today. We have culminated, if I can use that word. We're going to bring it all together. For the last few weeks, we have been breaking down the Power Four divisions or conferences of college football, and today we're going to bring all of that together for you in the form of predicting how the 12-team college football playoff is going to work. Emil, I have to admit, this was a very, very difficult exercise. In the past, when we have just tried to predict who's going to be in that final game, and then we had to figure out who were going to be the four teams in a 4-team college football playoff and whittle it down to a championship game and then a champion, seemed a whole lot easier than trying to piece together a 12-team playoff now that is going to have to go through all of the rounds and the minutia and the possibilities. There's so many more possibilities when you have a 12-team playoff. There's injuries. There's it's, you know what it's like? It's like your college football brackets, and it only takes 1-7 versus 10
basketball, the NCAA tournament brackets.
Oh yeah, it only takes one of those to upset everything.
One thing I got from it, at least when I was doing it, saying to myself that if they can straighten out a little bit of the side stuff that's going on in college football and get their act completely together, they may have a tiger by the tail here. In that, when you really start doing this as a fan, you're like, this could be cooler than the NFL playoffs if this goes the natural way it can go. Because college, at least, we're going to recognize the game we're watching on Saturday. Like, they're going to kick off and run down the field,
right?
But the NFL is going to be like, I've watched a little preseason stuff. It's weird. Like that kickoff play. So I mean, this could be.
It seems carnival-ish, if I could say that.
It definitely seems to me. I don't even think it's an age thing. I think if you're a 30-year-old guy that watched football since you're 10, you're looking at that kick, going, "This is really bizarre." And then there's like 17 sets of rules. Like, oh, if the ball lands here, it's this. Like I love rules and sports, and you know me, I'm detailed. I have a hard time following it. So I'm watching this playoff back to where I'm saying college football and saying we're getting all these matchups now, and you're going through this, and man, if they can just maintain the game we were sort of used to watching, they may have something here that could get really, really big. Not that college football is not big, but I mean really big.
Yeah, I mean, there's an opportunity here. I don't always trust the NCAA to get things right as it pertains to this, but, the on-field product, I was sitting here going through the possibilities and trying to predict how a 12-team playoff would play out, who would be in it, what matchups we'd have, who'd win them. I was excited, and the games haven't even been played. And, last night I found myself on a YouTube video which were some of the greatest moments in college football in the last couple of decades. And man, college football is a really, really great thing when it's getting played. Like to just hear the missed field goal touchdown in the Iron Bowl, just to hear the call on that and the hysteria and the mania that went on with it. I know you hate this, but he's going to the corner. Vince Young against USC. Those moments, man, are just
USC fan, but I loved it if looking back at it, it was still a great game USC was involved in.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in losing your third straight national title with whatever 10 seconds left and Vince Young beating you. So I mean, yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, it is
Emil will rise to that game there. I really think college football peaked on that moment and that night, but we do have the opportunity to get many games of that ilk in this postseason, and not just a bowl game where someone might be mailing it in. We're going to have marquee teams playing each other, meaning something late in the season.
Well, and you know what else I like about it too? I think what this will eventually do, and it's already starting, is it's going to push the games during the season. I know people say, oh, you're going to lose all the meaningful because the regular season. No, you're not. There's 140 teams, and you're putting 12 of them in a playoff. I mean, hell, the NFL has 30.
If anything, I think they'll mean more.
Well, I mean, I've heard the argument made that what makes college football great is the regular season. Well, The NFL puts 14 teams in the playoffs, and they only have 32, and we seem to care about their games. They've got 140. They're putting 12 in there. At least now what it does is if you play a difficult schedule,
Yeah.
and maybe you go 9-3,
Mm-hmm.
you get in as a 12 seed if the schedule was really, really tough. So your team isn't done after their second loss because they played a really hard schedule. So you get better scheduling. You get
Yes.
more fan interest all year.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make. It's that now they've got to be more careful with the scheduling, and you can't just try and roll in here and say, "Oh, we're 11-0, put us in." You do have to prepare yourself for a conference championship. You've got to prepare your team mentally for that. That means you need tougher games. You do have to prepare them for rounds potentially afterwards. And if you've played a bunch of cupcakes, you won't be able to stand up to that test. So we'll get more interesting, marquee, great matchups in the season. We're already seeing that with some of the preseason games that have been put there. So I'm looking forward to it. So we are going to break down that college football playoff. We're going to also, now that we've gone through all of these Power 4 conferences and talked about things, is give you our best futures / conference championship winner bets. All right. Emil's going to give you his best 5. I'm going to give you my best 5. And we're also going to break down the AFC and the NFC North divisions of the NFL today as we progress towards finishing all of the divisions and then doing the NFL playoffs. We've got a lot on our plate here. Someone's got to do this heavy lifting.
The first few shows on college football, I said they were the degenerate shows. If you have to gamble on everything, we gave you plays in every conference. Today, like Chad said, there's just going to be if we were just playing 5 future plays from the college football preseason packages we did, what we're going to give you what we would play. We've got a lot on our plate. Don't forget to go to Bovada. If you're playing these, they're our show sponsors, so get to Bovada Sportsbook.
Absolutely.
You can bet on anything there. You may even be able to bet on, like, if an ant's crawling up a wall, if it'll make it. There's all kinds of features.
They set odds on it all, and
so
we love them for it.
We're going to put this in the college football playoff is going to be the crescendo of the show. So let's start with the NFC North, go over to the AFC North. These are 2 divisions. These are the hamburgers, okay? For the next few weeks, I keep giving you this. I'm past the pickle. I got hamburgers, and then when I get to the NFC East, that's my French fries, okay?
Yeah, well, you've been on food a lot lately. I don't think Emil eats before he gets on the show here.
I'm Italian. At breakfast, we start thinking about lunch. At lunch, we're planning dinner. That's just how it goes. Okay.
I totally understand, my friend. So,
okay, so the
let's
NFC
jump on it.
Is an interesting conference for me because, and I have a feeling we're going to disagree a little on this. I think the Packers are going to be a good team, but I'm not sold yet on Jordan Love, and that doesn't mean I don't think he's going to be great. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is I saw 8 to 10 really good football games played by him. Mm-hmm. And obviously what he did to my team in Dallas really had a lot of people rightfully so high on him. And he got the big money. But now, like anything else, just, we've seen this in sports. Either his career continues to take off and he becomes Patrick Mahomes-like or in that conversation, or, he does a little bit of a Jalen Hurts and regresses. Okay, so the way I see this division, I think the Lion hype train is a little overblown. I think they're going to win the division. I don't think they're a 13-win team. I think they're a very good team. They're playing a more difficult schedule. They're going to get marked on everybody's schedule. The Lions game is now a big game. So I've got them winning this division at 11-6.
Okay.
Second, I think the Packers, I haven't really gone through and done playoffs yet. I think they're on the cusp of being a playoff team at 9-8. Maybe they get a 10th win even. But for now, I'll stick with 9-8. I think they encounter a little bit of regression. They have a lot of youth there. Again, they're not going to sneak up on anybody. Last year when Aaron Rodgers walked away, I think there was a little bit of, oh, good, Packers will go away for a while. And, they kind of came on strong at the end, obviously, what they did to my team. Third place, I really like what the Bears are putting together. I've got them at 8-9.
Very interesting.
Well, of course, I'm I'm a Caleb Williams homer. I get that. But I like what they've surrounded him with for his rookie season in terms of playmakers outside. He's not going to be throwing to nobody. Okay. Like sometimes you get these
Sure.
guys coming in and you look around and you're like, well, sure, the guy's going to fail. And, a little bit of that went on in Carolina last year.
I've been trying to think of rookie quarterbacks that have come into this league on, that were picked within the top 5 that came in and had any measure of success. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. I'm probably missing some. If you have one, I would certainly listen.
I mean, I'm sure if we dug, maybe we'd find one somewhere. You're right. And I'm not predicting he's going to make the Pro Bowl or anything, but I think he's going to be very capable as a rookie. He'll make some dumb mistakes, hence the reason I have them with the losing record. But I also think there's going to be an excitement around Bears games because he's a fun guy to watch. Now, to your point, the coach in you is right. He's got to refrain from going to recess football. If that starts happening, this could get ugly. But
I thought I saw some of that in a preseason game last week.
Yeah.
As you and my brother were lauding his performance.
Well, the recess football is fun when it works. The problem is people start game planning for you, it doesn't tend to work. So I've got them at 8 and 9, and I'm not high on the Vikings. Just not.
I'm seeing.
I've got them at 6 and 11.
If you've got them behind the rookie quarterback of the Bears franchise, sure.
I've got them at 6 and 11. I don't love what I'm seeing in Minnesota right now. So I don't have a lot of future bets I love in this division. I like the Lions at plus 130. They were a few plays away from being in a Super Bowl last year. Mm-hmm. They're the division favorite. With the Vikings and Bears, I think having no chance to win the division. To me, it's just a 2-horse race, Lions, Packers, and I can bet the Lions comfortably there. And the only other play I like in this, obviously based on my analysis, I'm going under 7.5 wins for the Vikings, and I'm willing to pay 154 on that.
Are you really? Wow.
Yes,
this guy
is 7.5 wins. I know we don't see this division quite the same, but I'm just not high on the Minnesota Vikings. So,
you weren't joking about that at all. All right. Here's how I see it unfolding. Or do we need to recap that? We've got Emil likes Detroit at 11-6 to win the division. Things still carry on. They'll continue to bite kneecaps over there in the Motor City. He thinks Green Bay comes in at a close second at 10-7. You've got Chicago with the rookie quarterback coming in at 8-9. And what did we say we had Minnesota at?
6 and 11, comfortably
6 and 11, bringing up the rear.
7.5.
Yeah, you're like the mighty Kirk Cousins has left the Minnesota Vikings, and now they will slide all the way down the pole to 6 and 11.
They were mighty with him. That's more my point.
I mean, he was hurt, but whatever. Yeah. Nevertheless, all right. Here's how I see this thing going. It was a great season for Detroit. A part of me, Emil, I don't know how you feel about it, is we got down to that end there, and it looked like they were really going to have a chance to knock off the 49ers and get in there. I'm all for, call it me advancing in my years, all for trying to see something that I'd never seen before. And that something I'd never seen before, the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl. And I thought it would be good for me to see that. I felt like a window really, really closed there. The good parts of Detroit is still there. Jared Goff really does operate the offensive system there very well. As much as the offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, was sought after in the offseason, he made the decision to stay there. I think that's a really, really good thing. The defense was solid. It did have its holes, and that kind of showed in some of the playoff games. But what's going to be missing this year is the element of surprise. Detroit's not going to sneak up on anyone, as you mentioned. And I think that was a good part of what they were able to have last year, at least in several games that I could think of off the top of my head. They were, as in the past, they were a breather in the schedule between maybe 2 hard contests. They're not going to be that anymore. They were plotting on this offseason. People watched, rewatched, and started figuring out some ways that they're going to have to deal with Detroit. And people didn't have to do that in the past. It was, we're just going to play Detroit. I think that's going to have some effect, when you're the Detroit Lions. Plus, psychologically, getting that close there, and you even heard it from Dan Campbell, was, hey, I think that was our opportunity there. That came out of that man's mouth. So,
well, not to interrupt you, my biggest concern with Detroit is that I'm hoping he learns that it's okay to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just keep going for two all the time. You can't go for first down on your own 30-yard line. At some point, you have to realize that my talent is as good or better than most of the teams I'm playing.
Yes.
I don't need to be crazy.
I hope he does, because that's okay to do when you were the Detroit Lions that you were last year.
Yes.
Right? You coming in there, you're shocking. They weren't expecting this, and you do crazy stuff. Now you're like, you got your Letterman's jacket. You need to act a little different around campus now.
The most shocking thing was after the referees called the two-pointer back correctly, by the way.
Yes.
He went for it again, and then again. And you're just like, oh, okay. Like, at some point after one try, you go, okay, let's just kick the extra. We'll play overtime.
No doubt, Emil. The man was hitting on 2 face cards in the casino. He was nuts. And I think that's going to cost them here and there. The fact that they don't get to sneak up on people. So they're my second place team in the NFC North. My first place team is Green Bay. I saw a lot of great in the middle towards the end of that of the season we just had there. Jordan Love looks like he's going to be that guy. It'd be nice if I had 2 years worth of that to be more sure about it. But I'm going to gamble on him continuing on the success. And a lot of the good things that I saw last year, they had, like Detroit, they had San Francisco in a chokehold in their place. And I think they walk away from their game feeling different about what happened than how Detroit felt. Whereas Detroit felt like, oh, that was a door closed. I feel like Green Bay would treat that as a door open. These are the possibilities. And we're also the Green Bay Packers. We're not the Detroit Lions. We have a history here of success. We've been in Super Bowls. We're supposed to be here. And I think they're more ascending. So I like them at 11-6 to be the champs of this division. You're not high on Minnesota. That's clear. I'm not high on Minnesota either, but my high is higher than your high, or my low is higher than your low. I've got them third there at 9-8. It's tough to figure out what their quarterback situation is going to be. That's going to be a big issue for them. I still think they play well enough on defense. I still think they have a playmaker at the wide receiver position at Justin Jefferson, one of the top 5 guys in the league. He'll make some things happen, and I think they'll be good enough to come up third in this division.
Okay.
Who I'm not as high on as you is Chicago. At the end of the day, yes, it's not a rookie head coach, but it's a lame duck coach, it seems like to me, with who they've got. I just like the whole staff has been with some turmoil, but now you're bringing a rookie quarterback into that situation. And yes, they did bring guys around to help. Keenan Allen, you were able to get some guys re-signed. You did a really good job in the draft, and at least getting the guy that Caleb Williams wanted, Roman Duzzi out of Washington. So yeah, you're going to have those. But there are going to be growing pains at quarterback, and in particular with this type of quarterback. When I look at a guy like Bo Nix operating Sean Payton's system, he's on time. He's getting the ball out of his hand. He's operating the offense. And in that first season, that's kind of what you want. I'm not seeing that with Caleb Williams. I'm seeing ad-libs, and maybe down the road, his ceiling's higher because, Bo Nix is probably just running a system, and maybe he never matures out of that. So he's just that. And maybe Caleb Williams, eventually it all gets put together, and then now the wow plays are added with some consistency and now you can kind of move closer to the Pat Mahomes that people are comparing you to. I think that has the makings for a disaster in your rookie year. So I see a 7-10 football team being at the end.
Well, wait, we don't see them that much. If you really break down this division, I see the Bears one game better. The only where we have true separation is Minnesota. I've got the Packers with 9 wins. You got them with 11. I've got the Lions with 11 wins. You got them with 10. So, I mean, we really don't see the Bears. I mean, I'm saying they're going to win one more football game.
True. But I do like the Pack to get back to the top of this division.
So, do you have any best bets here?
I've got 2. If I think Chicago's 7-10, under 8.5 or plus 140 is like candy to me. So I'll take that. And since I believe Green Bay though I think it'll be tight at the top. But if I'm going to get plus 225 for Green Bay to win this division, why not? Why not pick that up and run with it? So I'm going to take that.
Before I slide over to the AFC North, let me summarize. Chad has the Packers winning the division with 11 wins. He's got the Lions a close second with 10. Much higher on the Vikings than I am. He's got them at 9 and 8. And he has the Bears pulling up the rear at 7 and 10. He's not as high on Caleb Williams as I am, and hence his best bet in this division is an under 8.5 on the Bears, getting plus 140 money. That's good money if you like that. And then he has the Packers to win the division at plus 225. I'm going to slide over to the AFC North. I'm not going to belabor this that much. I like the Ravens and the Bengals. I think they're both excellent football teams. I think either one of them, when we get to that point in the our preseason, could go to the Super Bowl. I think having a full year of Joe Burrow is really going to help the Bengals. He was hurt. They've got a really good coach there. They managed to win football games last year without Joe Burrow. And I think this division is tight at the top. I've got them tied, them and the Ravens, both going 12-5.
Whoa.
So
all right.
I have the Bengals winning the division on a tie break, but both the Bengals and Ravens are 12-5. The bottom of the division to me are both average competitive football teams. I have the Steelers going 9 and 8. I have the Browns going 8 and 9. You can flip flop that. I like Mike Tomlin. He's never had a losing season, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't like what I'm seeing at quarterback in Pittsburgh. I think that's got the makings of a disaster. Russell Wilson is toast. And I think when you have Fields behind him, now you've got, as soon as one guy plays poorly, people start clamoring for the other guy, and then you could be bouncing around. But I'm going to rely on Tomlin to keep the locker room tight. The defense is always there. I think they win 9 games. The Browns, I don't know what to make. The defense will be really good, but I'm not sure Deshaun Watson has anything left at this point. So I've got them at 8 and 9. If I like the Bengals to win on a tie break and I can get plus 165 money, I'm going to take the Bengals at plus 165 to win this division. And then finally, easy for me, I'm going over 10.5 on the Ravens, minus 122, and over 10.5 on the Bengals, minus 122. I think both of these teams are two of the class of the AFC for me. So that's how I see it.
All right. We're too different here. There are some differences, of course. I clearly see Baltimore as the class in this division here. They've been phenomenal. They've been tremendous in the regular season over the past few years, really under Lamar Jackson's tenure there, and I don't see that changing. Yes, there's some disappointment from what happened last year in the playoffs. Once again, getting disappointed, not making it to that final game. But there's no shame in losing to the eventual world champs, and then B, losing to the Kansas City Chiefs, who've been the class of the NFL for the last 5-6 years. There's no mental breakdown off of that. That is, we just continue.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm going to interject a little sports talk into your predictions. Why is it, this is the Cowboy fan in me wants to ask a question, that Lamar Jackson's playoff failures don't seem to be treated as harshly as Dak Prescott's when they're almost identical?
The same way that the Yankees, a first-place team, is catching all types of hell for being a first-place team that doesn't have a closer or whatever. If you're the Yankees, if you're the Cowboys, if you're the Lakers, you're going to be judged on a different scale. Your failures will be blown up, magnified 10 times over some of the others. The Ravens aren't the Cowboys.
Fair enough. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, for Cowboys fans listening out there, you guys go on and on about being America's team. This is what comes with that. So, yeah, 13-4, and 13-4 with someone else is totally different. Getting ousted in the playoffs year after year is totally different if you're in Dallas as opposed to in Baltimore. So, yeah, they got a longer rope out there, and they're going to use it again this year.
We digressed. You've got the Ravens at 13-4. I don't see them much different than you.
No. Where we do have a difference is in Cincinnati, who I think falls back here. All right. There was that opportunity for you a couple of years ago with the Rams, and boy, did you ever come close. Hey, Chase was wide open on that last game. You just couldn't block that guy, number 99. You get him blocked up, you're probably Super Bowl champs. We saw a fallback last year. Obviously, that had a lot to do with Joe Burrow getting injured. I still don't like Cincinnati up front, and there's a good chance, God forbid, Joe Burrow gets hurt again, misses time, starts getting shell-shocked. So I think there's some problems there for Cincinnati, and I think they slide back. I have them at 9-8, believe it or not.
Yeah,
So.
we just so far today. Obviously, we have two teams we see very differently: the Vikings and the Bengals. That's fair enough.
Yeah, I think it's a struggle there for Cincinnati. Cleveland, I'm with you, man. I don't know what Deshaun Watson's got left. I have always felt, even back in his Houston days when he was putting up numbers, that the guy holds the football too long. He doesn't go through those reads really fast enough. And he's not, while he's mobile, he's not a guy, I think people get it confused. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not one of these guys that's going to gut you.
Murray, he's not Lamar Jackson.
No, he's not going to gut you with a run.
Honestly, he's probably closer to a Dak Prescott and maybe
pre-injured Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
He's that guy. Yeah, that's who he is. And that's not going to work for you. You can't be running around, especially when you've been hit and you've been injured. So I'm not sure. Plus what he's been through off the field, I don't know what he's got there. They're probably still kicking themselves over that contract. I think they're an 8-9 football team. Nick Chubb coming back. I want to see what he's like. That will definitely help. But right now I've got him as an 8-9 team, as you do.
Maybe a massage helps him relax or something, and he elevates his game.
Yeah. We're going to have to see. We're definitely going to have to see. Where we have some difference, and I hate to say this because I love Mike Tomlin, I just feel like the pressure's getting on. The needle is kind of moving in the opposite direction slowly, but it just continues to move in that direction. And I'm with you, Emil. I think the quarterback situation is a powder keg. I think Russell Wilson is a classic example of a guy who fit into a system and probably needed to stay into that system and kind of be quiet, for lack of another term. The whole let Russ cook thing and turn it into all Russ. No, I think you should have stayed within that system. Continue to have their good ground game. Continue to have, work in tandem with a really good defense that Pete Carroll was trying to put together there every year. Not try to turn it into, I need to go chase the Aaron Rodgers numbers.
Yes.
I need to go chase the Tom Brady numbers. That's a mistake he'll probably look back on.
An analogy, I really believe Russ Wilson at a pro level was Pete Carroll's Matt Leinart. And what I mean by that is, and this isn't a knock on Matt Leinart, obviously.
Game manager.
He was great in that USC system. He was the right quarterback for the right time because Pete surrounded him with all kind of playmakers. And it was simple. Don't throw the ball to the other team. Don't hold the ball too long. And our playmakers are better than theirs. We're going to win.
Yes. And we can close out games and win when we have a lead in the fourth quarter.
And I think he was setting that up in Seattle, and Russ got full of himself. It's like, listen.
He did. It's a very difficult situation that guys find themselves in. People start telling you how great you are, and you start really thinking it's more about you than the place where you're at and the people that you're with. And, he oversold himself. And that showed in Denver, though I thought Sean Payton maybe mishandled him a little bit there. So your confidence is shaking. You're coming into Pittsburgh now. You do not have that offensive line. You will be running around as an aged player now. And I just feel like there'll be some fallbacks. There'll be some disappointments. And Justin Fields is sitting right there, a guy who can get and be mobile and run around. And he's not right. He's not altogether right either.
Funny, I think the Steelers actually did a little bit to help their offensive line run blocking. I think they're going to be better run blocking, which will help Harris, and maybe better suited for Justin Fields because I think their offensive line is going to be a pretty good run blocking line. I'm concerned about them, like you, in pass protection, and that doesn't bode well for Russell Wilson at this point in his career.
Any slip up, any fallback, any weakness at all defensively, and Pittsburgh's in big trouble. I think for the first time, Emil, because again, I've seen the needle moving in that direction. Mike Tomlin falls under that, never had a losing season thing. and they end up 7-10. And then I think the dam breaks because that's kind of been holding him there. Never had a losing season.
Pulled it
We
out the
can't
last couple of years. The last couple of years, they've come on the last month of the season and finished with winning records, and
clean that up.
yeah, and it's kind of got the positive vibe. I think if what you're saying happens, it may be like, hey, you're a great coach. We need a new message.
Sure. And Mike Tomlin will go somewhere else and be wildly successful. It's just you've been in that place for such a long time, and it's hard to do that in this day and age,
It is.
And so I think that'll probably be the door opening to have Pittsburgh, because they're already a loyal franchise to begin with. And then you would have been faced with, in the several last couple of years, of firing a guy who never had a losing season. That's something you want to really have people walking around saying. And then I think this is a door that allows Pittsburgh to do something fresh and allows Mike Tomlin to do something fresh, and both can experience some success from it.
You know where you're going to laugh at this, but because I think Mike Tomlin is an old school coach who likes to just coach.
Yes.
I actually could see him in Dallas.
Sure. Why not? I could see him anywhere, to be honest.
The reason I say that is he's not one of these guys that seems like he needs to control every aspect of the organization. He seems like a guy, give me my roster and I'll coach him up.
Sure. We don't entirely know what will happen in Dallas. We'll predict it next week. But whatever happens, there's two teams in New York that, the Cowboys would have to fight to get a Mike Tomlin if, they decided they want to move on from Mike McCarthy.
Okay. Give me your best bets so we can get to college football now, because we hit this hard, which is good.
Yeah, my best bet here is Baltimore, since I think they're far and away the best team in this division, and I could get them at plus 110 to be the winners. I'll take that.
Okay.
Since I think they're a 13-4 team, getting them at over 10.5 at minus 122 seems like a bargain for me, so I'll run with that. Since I think Pittsburgh's a 7-10 team and Vegas, Bovada has the number at 8.5, I'll take it, even though it's minus 135. I'll run there.
Okay, so summarizing Chad here, Chad has the Ravens clearly the class of this division. He thinks they're a 13-win team. He doesn't like my Bengals as much. He has them second as a 9-8 club. And then finally, Cleveland and Pittsburgh pulling up the rear with 8 and 7 wins respectively. Best bet, you just heard it. He said the Ravens win the division. You get plus 110. And then finally, over 10.5 on the Ravens, which I myself love as well, at minus 122. And he's got under 8.5 on the Steelers, minus 135. Let's roll right in, because we're going to...
here's where the fun's going to start.
Well, let's just summarize our college football best bets. Chad and I gave you a plethora. There's a big word for people. Look it up.
There you go.
Use it. Okay.
Word of the day.
Plethora of future bets on college football. And because of all the conferences, you would have a lot of money tied up if you wanted to make all these future bets. So we said, let's skinny this down and give you our 5 best. This is kind of what we're going to grade when we give you our statistics at the end of the year. This is what we'd put our money on if we were making future bets. My 5 best, I like under 9.5 wins for Alabama. I'm willing to lay 135. I know that sounds crazy on a preseason college show. I don't think in that conference Alabama's a 10-win team in the regular season. Remember, your totals are all based on your regular season. Okay, it doesn't include postseason.
Yes. Because how could you do that?
Right. I'm going over 6.5 wins for the Washington Huskies at minus 105 in the Big Ten. I just feel that,
that's a good one.
Yeah, they're really crapping on Washington, who's been a winning program, and you're saying that they have to be 7-5 to win that bet. Okay, I'll take it. I'm going to go under 6.5 wins on Cal and the ACC. I'm willing to pay 165 on that. I find it very hard to believe that Cal is going to go to a new conference, travel for all their road games, clear across the country, not be used to that, play a whole new slew of teams they haven't seen. They were never dominant in the Pac-12 since the Aaron Rodgers days. I mean, and you tell me they're going to win 7 games? I don't think so. I'm minus 165 on that, but I'll do it. Finally, I have 2. This is crazy, but I love Kansas State plus 375 to win the Big 12.
At those odds.
Yeah, I think their quarterback leaving kind of puts a chip on their shoulder, and I think they've got a good roster. And obviously, who knows why he left? Did he leave because he wanted to play for Ohio State, or did he leave because someone's kind of pushing him out the door from behind? But I know one thing. They're rated highly this year. They got a good roster. I like them. And then finally, this is chalky, but I'm going to take Ohio State plus 130 to win the Big Ten because I think this is a down year for Michigan a little bit. And that's usually one of those two teams in the mix at the end in this conference traditionally. So I've got Ohio State plus 130. That's my 5.
All right. Rack 'em, folks. They're in. We will grade these in a few months. All right. For me, starting with one that's a little weird because although I have Georgia winning the SEC, I think there's a pretty good likelihood that Texas could win it. And if I can get plus 300 for that, I'll take it. And that's one of my top 5. I think the odds makers out there have a very different view of Oklahoma than I do. They have them at 7.5. I'm seeing an ascending program there. And even though they're moving into the SEC, I don't see how you get that number for them. So I'm going to go over 7.5 as one of my best bets there at minus 110. I also think Michigan State is going to be an abject disaster this year as they were last year. You were a collapsing franchise. You were a falling stop in the previous Big Ten. Now you're adding some more heavyweights to it. And I just think you shrink further. Michigan State is going to find that bottom this year. And so
apparently so for you.
Yeah, they're going to find the bottom. They don't know where it is, but they're going to find it this year. Yeah. And I think they're a 3-win team. Vegas or the odds makers at Bovada think they're a 4.5 win team. I'm going to go under. And now I get plus 135 for that.
Okay.
I think they're underselling Nebraska. I think maybe Paul Feinbaum works at Bovada and set these odds. He doesn't think much of Nebraska. I believe in their head coach, man. I believe in the support for Nebraska Cornhuskers. You're still getting 90,000 to your spring game there. So I'm going to push on that. This man can coach college football. So
yeah, I'll be honest with you. I have family that when Penn State played Nebraska over the years, I had an uncle, a great guy. He's had season tickets for 50 years. Right. And he went out there and he confirmed what many have told me, that Nebraska's got some of the greatest fans in college football.
Yeah, it's look, you feel how you feel about it, but they show up. Yeah. They show up. That was my final game in college football in the Orange Bowl. Their fans travel down here. Now, of course, if you live in Nebraska, why wouldn't you come down to South Florida at that time of year, especially to see your team? But they traveled well. And so, yeah, they have great fans. And, man, Matt Rule can coach college football. He was not much of an NFL coach.
But that doesn't mean anything. We've seen
no,
that.
Neither was Steve Spurrier. Neither was Lou Holtz. Neither were several other guys.
And we could go – the list is large. There's only a few guys, Jimmy Johnson, Pete Carroll, that really –
That's the list.
Pretty much that made that transition. It's a short list. I don't even include Barry Switzer because he won a Super Bowl with Jimmy's guys.
Oh, yes. No, he came and ate from a table that was already set. Yeah. So, yeah, Matt Rule can do this college football thing. I think they're a 9-win team. Bovada says 7.5. I'm going to take them over 7.5 at minus 122. And then finally, listen, I've got my school, Miami and Florida State, in that final game there. Florida State is the team with the most recent success and carrying a little bit of momentum. If you're telling me I can get plus 250 for Florida State to win the ACC, I'll take it, and that'll round it off for me.
Okay, we gave you 10 there, guys, between the two of us, so have fun with it.
Yeah, they're 10 altogether. We didn't, we don't have the same one on anything.
No, 10 altogether. Now, here, let's do this for fun. College football playoff. Let me set it up the way I understand it. We'll tell everybody, okay, so the way this is my understanding and Chad's understanding of how this is working this year, I kind of looked this up, and just to make sure I got it straight, we're going to have 12 teams. Obviously, the top 4 are going to get a first-round bye, and they're going to be the conference champions with the highest rankings, in the order of their rankings. So, so you have to win your conference to be a top 4 seed, period.
And I think it's cool that they give that reverence to the winners.
Because I don't want 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams every year getting a first-round bye. It's not fair.
Yes.
let's
Yeah,
put
by rule, you eliminate that possibility.
yes. So I like that. Let's put some stock in that. So they're going to get a bye 5 through 12. It's going to be simple, right? 5 plays 12, 6 plays 11, 7 plays 10, 8 plays 9. I don't believe there's any reseeding. So in other words, they set a bracket. If 12 upsets 5, well, the way it's supposed to work, 4 was going to play 5. They assume the highest seed, so 4 is playing 12.
Right.
Okay, so let's do this in order. My top 4, your top 4. We'll try to go through so we don't confuse people watching the podcast. My top 4 is simple. Not simple, but for me, but I have Ohio State, number 1 seed, winning the Big Ten. 2, I have Texas winning the SEC. Therefore, I've got them as the 2 seed. 3, I have a kind of an upset here. I had Miami winning the ACC, and that I have them higher ranked than, obviously, the next conference champ, so I've got them as a 3 seed. And then I have Kansas State, who I just talked about. I can't give you them as a best bet to win the Big 12 and not have them in this playoff, so I've got them as the 4 seed. Give me your top 4.
My God, it's like you begrudgingly put that last team in there.
Well, when you start doing a bracket, okay, it's one thing to pick Kansas State to win the Big 12. When you look down at your bracket and you go, well, that makes them the 4 seed, it's like, okay. I mean, it's not
that. Maybe that's the fun of this thing. All right, I've got Georgia at number 1.
Okay.
Winning the SEC. Tightly contested with Texas, who was one of my best bets to win it all, but figure this out. It's a little strategy there. I've got number 2 at Ohio State. I've got 3, Florida State winning in the championship game versus Miami. Then I've got, wait for it, Kansas at number 4, because I think they're going to win.
You're saying it kidding around, but that Big 12, when you go really break it down, it's so wide open. The team with the QR codes on the helmet, Oklahoma State, we didn't even talk about that. We'll save that for next show.
No, but when the aliens who left Earth in 1998 return in 2024 and they see the rankings here and they see Kansas or Kansas State at number 4, I think they're going to just fly back off to where they came from.
They are. So let's do this then. Now I'm going to give you my first round matchup. So I'm going to give you them in order, and then you do the same. I've got 5 and 12. So I've got Georgia as the 5 seed, Texas A&M as the 12 seed. Okay. I've then got Oregon as the 6 seed, and I have Clemson sneaking in here as an 11 seed. I'm much higher on them than Chad this year. 7 seed, I've got Oklahoma playing the 10 seed Penn State. And then finally, in my 8-9 game, I've got Notre Dame playing Ole Miss. I think fun guy Lane Kiffin sneaks in here with a big season.
As I hope you will do to mine, launch some attacks. So you have Florida State completely out of this whole thing.
Completely out of it.
Wow. That's a good one. I'm going to give you mine, obviously. I might regret the Ole Miss thing.
Here's the thing. I told you this when we did the preview. It's not even that. If you look at Ole Miss's schedule, unless they completely crap the bed in some early SEC games, they should get through the first half 6-0. They've got their cupcakes out of conference to give themselves confidence. So by the time they start seeing real teams, they should be 6-0 and full of themselves. So even if they go 4-2, I mean, it's not hard to see them being 10-2.
You know, Emil, my model has them at 7-5. If they end up 7-5 this year, I think it's time to package that thing and put it on the shelves in Kroger's and all of the Albertsons and grocery stores and sell it.
Hey,
because
the wild card at Ole Miss is always going to be, what do they do defensively? Lane will put up points. Dart's a good quarterback for his system. So again, it all comes down to if they get some stops, I think they could have a big season. Or you might be right, they're 7-5, but I've got them in this. So go ahead,
right.
Give me your 5-12 game. Who do you got in the 5-12?
Like you at number 5, I've got Texas.
Okay.
Number 12 for me is Bama.
Texas at 5. You stop that. I have Georgia at 5. I got Texas in that 2 hole.
Oh, yes, that is true. Yes. My bad. Didn't mean to screw that up for you there. Yes, okay, so I have Texas at 5. We've got that transposed, I guess.
Okay.
So I've got Texas at number 5, a team that you have kicked out of the 12-team playoff, the previous grand masters of college football. I have Alabama at 12.
Okay.
Number 6 for me is Oregon, which you have Oregon at 6. I think that's might be.
We don't talk about these in advance. I mean, honestly, most of these we keep for a 12-team playoff. We have some eerily similar views.
No, I'm telling you, you folks at home listening to this, try this exercise. You'll find it very challenging. But I've got Oregon at 6, and I've got Kansas State sneaking in there because you know what? I think there'll be a lot of noise made if a team makes it to the championship game. And yeah, they happen not to win it, but somehow they didn't make it into that thing. I think there'll be some sympathy there for Kansas State, who I think will be 9-3, but they'll be in there. I've got them at 11. 7 is for me Oklahoma, as it is for you. It's just, I think we also got the same. Yes, we have Penn State also at 10. So that 7 and 10 matchup is Oklahoma and Penn State.
Yes.
8 versus 9 for me is Notre Dame versus Miami.
Okay.
And I'm glad you did not forget Notre Dame in this whole thing because they were obviously not a part of our conference breakdowns. But I think Notre Dame's a 10-2 football team this year. If you look at that schedule, plus how strong I think they'll be.
I think they're going to get in because they're Notre Dame and they're 10-2. I think their schedule actually is very favorable. I mean, they have Florida State on there. They have a road game with USC and the opener with A&M. So, right then and there, they figure out a way to win 2 of those 3 or even one of them. There's the other 9. If you look at the schedule, there's easily 8 wins where they come on the field and loosen up in that schedule. And
I will just say this. There's no way you keep a double-digit win Notre Dame team out of a 12-team playoff.
Nope. They need them for TV. They're in there. So
I wouldn't even say that. It's just you can't even do that. I don't care what the stakes are. You just can't do it.
No, I agree.
All right, so where do we go next, my friend?
Okay, next, my 5-12 game, I have Georgia beating A&M. So that puts Georgia into a game with Kansas State. I've got Oregon beating Clemson. That puts Oregon in a game against Miami. I've got Penn State, which would be considered an upset based on seeding, beating Oklahoma. That has them playing Texas. And I've got Notre Dame beating Ole Miss, so that has them playing Ohio State, okay? So then I'm going to go through that to get to my Final Four and then wait for you. My Final Four then would be Ohio State defeats Notre Dame as the 1 seed. They would end up playing Georgia, who defeats Kansas State in that 4-5 game. So my semifinal one would be Ohio State versus Georgia. The other side, I have Texas beating Penn State. Oregon beating Miami of Florida. So Texas-Oregon is my other semifinal. Go, you're up.
All right. My round 1 has Texas over Bama in another SEC matchup. All right. And then I've got Oregon over Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, we have the same deal here. I'm taking Penn State upsetting Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And then in something, I guess you guys could call this is why I don't get involved in these things when we get into the regular season. This might be a little bit, if I sit down with a therapist, this might be a little bit of me hedging in my mind. But I'm taking Notre Dame over Miami. And would love to be wrong, folks.
Okay, so that sets you up for the 4 games. You have Georgia versus Notre Dame. Who do you got winning that?
Georgia.
So you got Georgia in a semifinal. You've got Ohio State, Penn State in a Big Ten grudge match. Who do you got winning that?
Ohio State. Sorry, Franklin.
You got Ohio State on the other side of the bracket. Then you've got Florida State, Oregon.
Oregon over Florida State.
Okay, so that sets up Ohio State, Oregon as one of your semifinal games, and then you've got Kansas and Texas.
You are. I have Texas over Kansas.
Okay, so your semifinal, you have Ohio State playing Oregon on one side, UGA playing Texas on the other. Okay,
correct.
So who do you have winning those games?
In this mega trio matchup, I'm going to take Texas to finally get it together.
Okay.
and beat UGA
Okay.
in the game that matters the most, the final game between the two of them. And then I have Ohio State over Oregon,
Okay. I have Ohio State playing
which
Georgia.
ends up being another triple matchup.
Right. Yes. I have Ohio State playing Georgia in one of my semifinals. I've got Ohio State winning that game. I've got Texas, Oregon on the other side. I've got Texas winning that game. So my championship game is the same, amazingly, as yours. You have Ohio State, Texas. I have Ohio State, Texas. Who do you got for the national title?
I am going to get this rather large monkey off of the back of Ryan Day because, golly, he needs it. But what they have done in Columbus with the amount of talent they've put together, Urban Meyer has described it as perhaps the best accumulation of talent that he's ever seen. There may be some hyperbole in that because when you start thinking about some of the teams that have been out there,
Yes.
the 2001 University of Miami Hurricanes, which I will always say is the best accumulation of talent that has ever happened. We can ride with Urban Meyer, who might have a decade-long memory that doesn't go any further than that. But the truth of the matter is they are extremely talented. And if he's worth any ounce of his salt as a head coach, I think he should be able to get all the way through this thing and win it all.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and argue because I've got them in the game. Kind of the way I'm seeing this, and anybody who's listened and watched our shows for the last decade or so knows I'm a homer. All my teams are LA teams, other than the Dallas Cowboys. I have an affinity for the Texas teams. So, couple teams, if it's not USC, I like to see Texas and Miami. I tell people up front.
Sure.
But I'm not making this pick as a homer because I like Texas. I actually think they got very close last year. They got to the semifinals. I love their quarterback, and Sark has really matured as a person. The guy he was that was drinking and high-fiving players coming off the field at USC, he did the Nick Saban rehab. He's a totally different guy now, and I've seen that in him. I think he's matured in the right ways, but he's kept that stuff that made him Sark, and he's a really good offensive mind. He's Lane Kiffin, only he's more serious and understands you got to play defense a little bit. I think Texas, because of the quarterback-coach combination, wins this because I think Sark's a better coach than Ryan Day.
I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't disagree, let me say. So it might come down to that. It might just come down to this coach versus that coach. Hey, if it ends up being Ohio State versus Texas, first of all, we'd probably snap our arms patting our back.
Yes.
And I will do that. But it will add so much intensity to that game with you having Texas and me having
I'll tell you one thing. The fans, when we get to week 2 of the season, if Texas goes to Ann Arbor and loses, you might see yours truly having a meltdown, okay? Because I'm fully expecting a coronation that day in Ann Arbor. I'm expecting Texas to go in there and roll the Wolverines. So if that doesn't happen, you may have your co-host maybe in full meltdown mode.
Yeah, I can see a lineup of bourbons right in front of you if that happens. The good thing about this particular college football season is that would not be a death sentence if that happened to Texas.
No, it wouldn't be a death sentence, but I also...
It might be a prelude to trouble, but it would not be a death sentence.
It would be a death sentence, but I feel like that game's pivotal as you go into SEC play because it's such a tough conference. You'd like to... just from a confidence perspective, I feel that game is very important for Texas because if they can win that, they get that shot in the arm to go into conference play. You lose that game, there's doubt creeps in, and there's some tough games in that Southeast Conference. You don't want to have doubt.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my champs start off with Akron.
Yeah. Well, they got
Akron, Weston, Michigan, and Marshall. That's how we kick off.
Isn't the Oregon game in September this year or no?
The Oregon game, as I'm looking at it right here, is October 12th.
Okay.
At Oregon, which if I'm predicting today, Ohio State loses that game. They're coming off of Iowa, which is a tough game. The following game after that is Nebraska. Tough sandwich game for them. So the way I see it in my mind is you lose to Oregon regular season, you play them for the conference championship, you beat them, and then you run into them again later on, and you end up being the team to win the 2 out of the 3.
Yes.
That's how I've laid this whole thing out for folks.
Wouldn't it be crazy though? I mean, like we did this blind. I mean, it's not like wouldn't it be crazy if a team if they played 3 times in 1 year?
We have such a chance of that happening, Emil. When you have any of the 2, what you would believe are the top teams facing each other in the regular season, and then most likely they're going to end up in a conference game. The way this 12-team playoff works out, you have such a great chance of that happening that it's going to be a Ali Frazier type thing for some of these teams. And maybe adds more fun to it.
Yeah.
You know, from a coaching standpoint, trying to beat a good team twice, let alone 3 times, if that's what you have to do to get to that end game, it's going to seem impossible. So it could be a whole lot of fun for us. Again, doing this exercise, and I would invite you folks at home to do it, or you could just leave it to us, the professionals, is a very difficult exercise, which is why I say if we end up with Ohio State and Texas at the end, you have to believe in the powers that are 2 chumps. You're going to have to. You're just going to have to do that.
We had a lot of fun. So today, 1 hour, we gave you the AFC North, the NFC North, our best bets for all the college football futures that we had covered the previous weeks, the college football playoff. Saturday's August 24th. If you haven't been following along, you got a real college football game to watch in Ireland, I believe it is. Florida State will be playing Georgia Tech. So get ready for cut blocks, Florida State. Get those braces on your defensive lineman's knees.
Yes, your cornerback's knees too, by the way.
Football is back, folks.
Yes, it is indeed back, and we're happy to have broken all this down for you. We are not done yet. Next week, we round it all up in the NFL as we are done with college. So we will give you both the AFC East and NFC East, plus we will break down the playoffs and get you all the way to that last game, the Super Bowl, which we have been very good.
And next week is the first real week of college football. We will be giving out our best bets.
That's right. We will be kicking off our week-to-week college football picks. So we've got a lot coming at you next week. Stay tuned. Stay locked in. If you're not a subscriber yet, you're messing up. Go do that right now. Subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on podcasters, Apple, Spotify, whatever you are listening to or hearing us from right now. Go ahead and get that done. You don't want to miss out on our next show. On your way out, if you think that we have provided you guys with some really good futures here, and I think that we have 10 of them between the 2 of us, go hit our sponsor, Bovada Sportsbook. There'll be a link in the description for you. Go ahead and hit them up. Get yourself down. A couple of soft lines there that I've noticed at Bovada that you can take advantage of so you can start the year off the right way and have yourself set up for the end. And then, like Emil said, we're going to have some picks for you next week, so you're going to want to have an account open somewhere so you can cash in. All right, that's it for Emil Calamino. I'm Chad Wilson. Thanks for watching the Two Chumps Football Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.